Hi, everybody. Today I'd like to share a message on the current time of what we've been experiencing. This message is a very specific message because it relates to influences and energy in the way that the system presents itself, uh, and the influence of the ancient astrotheological aspects are stepping in to present itself more deliberate, meaning in simple terms, what you're seeing happening right now is literally being refracted back to you, reflected back to you. You're seeing it in light, you're seeing it in the dark, you're seeing the polarities, the male and the female, the masculine and the feminine polarities, um, in their respectful or respected positions in this reality, reflecting it back to one another. The energy in terms of the experiences that you could be having is to try and establish what is real, what is not real. Bear in mind that for the last few weeks and months, the information on this channel has been about the system and its behavior, and the system and how it presents itself through the examples of the many minions presenting media. So we're looking at a meta cognitive type of experience, and this means that there is a drive to smash all three pillars, the sun, moon, and stars, together. Those three pillars are on the tracing board. They're smashing all these pillars together and they're creating a fractalized or hypercubic system. That's what they're trying to create, which means you'll have fractals of white squares and black squares. There'll be sharp points to present it like that. So how is this understood in metaphysics? It is understood to know that masculine and feminine properties within each and every spirited or soul, living soul being is amplified, which means you'll find pockets of or bubbles of creation taking place randomly. You'll also find where the feminine aspect, which is the feminine principle of this reality, the realm in which the overlay is over or is trying to wrap over, is resisting. However, the principle itself is reactive towards how the wrapping up or the overlay is taking place. In other words, imagine a plastic sheet wrapping over something soft, and that soft thing is actually fighting the way that the plastic is wrapping over it. Put it like that. That's the best example I can present to you. And then the following thing I'd like to share with you is that along with that comes the information on how the artificial intelligent systems such as the internet has been manipulated in terms of searching for things. So in other words, you're being presented with information that is not factual, but presented to you for you to accept. You don't have a choice. So I can sense that people would be wanting to go elsewhere to look deeper for things. Perhaps now is the time for people to start focusing on what is internal, because essentially all knowledge that is coming from an uncreated creator is always coming from within the self. It never really is always coming from the outside. So there is a peaking of a ideological the ideological warfare that was there before, as I've made a video of this before, the war on ideologies. It is now happening. And this then is adjusting itself or presenting itself as a mashup. I want to call it a great mashup that is busy happening, with everything all mashed together. Why is this permitted? This is permitted because the system itself has been fed a lot of focus, unfortunately, and a lot of focus is what the system requires to feed off of. I have also explored the information on the cognitive abilities that are being affected by the observation of what the system presents at all times. In other words, color magic to use to bring that in. The entire rainbow structure is illuminated, and it's all got some sort of neon frequency to it. So it's hyper stated or hypercubic. So that means anything that is naturally, let's say, one color is now amplified to amp up the color in itself, the color ratio in whatever you're looking at. And then based on this information and based on the mashup, I do want to say that this is not bad news. This is actually interesting news, because the news itself tells you how you are resisting the information focus from the system upon yourself. So what you're looking at in simple terms is basically everything being much more visible to you in terms of what is false as an overlay. You will see everything now. You will see more of it than you've ever thought you probably could. And you can basically see it in everything. You can hear it in how people communicate. You will experience that. And I'm talking to those who are spirited in their existence, those who have spirited DNA within them, the light, as in the frequency, not as the polarity. So please don't go run off and say it's white light or love and light. Please, that is not anything to do with what I'm busy talking about. What I'm saying is the frequency of your energy is a form of light. Just as you get a frequency that is dark in its presence, which means it is unexplored. Why is it unexplored? Because it's held in secret. It is confined in the quietness. And those who have been existing in servitude of the system have been exploring the dark aspects, which means the secret things. They have explored the secret things for a lot longer than you have. And so they have learned to understand that they are able to program the mass mind to accept whatever the mind gives focus to. I'm not saying this to just you, I'm saying this to just generally, that this is what we're looking at, what we're up against. And one could say a groupthink that's now encouraged. It's a bit more enforced now. And so the same lesson applies, the same advice applies, that you need to mind what you focus on, mind how you focus on, because this is now hypercubic in its presence, which means if it's hypercubic, it means creation is amplified. And that doesn't mean a positive creation. Creation is creation. Whether you fixate and have fear on certain things to happen in 100 years, or whether you are worried about the next thing, or a ghost around the corner, or something terrible to happen, or you've been looking at the news and it's terrified you shitless, that is what I'm talking about. That is the focus that you keep presenting, that you keep giving to the system. And once you're hypnotized by the event, by the shock factor of the system, of its events, and these things. Once you have exchanged in that way, you have then presented in yourself a state of surrendering and giving compliance to the system to basically take your creative seed, your thoughts, your consciousness, to use it to fight you. It does not ever want to have its hands dirty with any type of bad thing. Understand very clearly that the system does not ever want to have its hands dirty, does not want to have the guilt that is presented in human form. What it does is it presents an event, it uses the minions to work for it. The minions then create the event, or the Ministry of Magic, let me call it that, and they present an image for you to believe in, a sigil, an egregore, a symbol, a picture, a movie, a word, a color, a sound, whatever it is. All your senses are constantly being utilized for this. I've spoken about this before, so I'm sharing it with you again. It's very important that you pay attention to the focus that there is now. There's a hyper heightened focus on your frequency, which means you need to take hyper care of your own frequency and what you allow to come into your consciousness and what not. And the only way forward for you to be able to understand more of how to be out of range from this system is to keep focusing on the inner, on the kingdom within, to call it like that, to say it like that, or your inner house, or your real estate, your actual estate, that which you exist within, that which is what is you, your spirit, the spirit that is unable to die, that which is eternal within you. You are all of that. And when you are in that position of seeing things as they present themselves to be, you are able to discard it without feeling emotionally jarred by it. It is really actually that simple. Then I want to present to you another aspect in which has come to me, that the system itself must be seen as some type of force which required a lot of souls to bring it to life. And these souls had to agree to contracts that are related to Kabbalah, the Sephiroth, which is very strongly the key in which the system exists in. Think of it as a key that you use to switch on a machine, to put it like that. Yet the system is not only mechanical or artificial, but it is most certainly a combination of all of those aspects. It is organic and also material. It is also mechanical. It is all of these things. It is shaping in itself. It is shaping it is shape shifting into a presence that is acceptable for you. It is personal to you. It is a personal experience. What happens when you are when you have completed this existence and this reality? Where do you go? What do you do? I'll share this with you. Based on experience with talking to people who have passed on, and that is what my speciality was many years ago, that I'm able to communicate with those that have passed, that have all told me that there are always presence that tries to accommodate them in their choices. So you need to be making sure what choices you've made and how you experience your life. And that there is always a very strong possibility that when you have completed your choices, when you have completed your free will, when you have used it in the way that you were meant to your consciousness will have expanded to such an extent that you are able to transition beyond that. You would step over the doorway that presents itself once you are ready to pass. And so that is a subject that we will be going into at a later stage. But I do want to share with you the reality of the circumstances that we're in. I also want to remind you that your focus must be on your family and loved ones, and to focus on that which is of the heart and the beautiful, wonderful, kind things that you experience in your life. That must be your focus. Beyond that is not for you to see yet. Therefore, you must focus on that which is within your presence and your immediate environment, that which is around you. I'm reading an article that's publicized, or that's a journal that was published on June 2021, and it's from the PubMed website. I'm reading the article because it substantiates what I've been saying, and only it puts it in a much more abstract form of understanding. It starts by saying, and I'll put the link at the bottom, research in the past decades shed light on the different mechanisms that underlie our capacity for cognitive control. It's called meta-control, from psychology to computational neuroscience. However, the meta-level processes that regulate cognitive control itself remain poorly misunderstood or understood. Following the terminology from artificial intelligence, meta-control can be defined as a collective or collection of mechanisms that monitor the progress of controlled processing, in other words, what you think, and regulate the underlying control parameters in the service of current task goals and in response to internal and external constraints. So in other words, presenting for you things to believe in. And the only reason it's emphasized so much is because of the more susceptibility to wanting to accept it. People have become more acceptable or accepting of things. That doesn't mean everyone. Obviously, I'm talking to the few that are not allowing this to happen within. It states following, or furthermore, from a quote, from a psychological perspective, meta-control is an important concept because it may help explain and predict how and when human agents select different types of behavioral strategies. That is what that means. And so I'd urge you to please read the entire article for what it is, just as a substantiation of what I'm busy explaining to you in my message. I've brought up the information on Meta before, where I've spoken about Metatron, which is an esoteric symbol, kabalyon system or mechanism that presents the color magenta, which is blue and red mixed together. In other words, that is why I am drawing the conclusion that there is a smash up or a mash up of elements of masculine and feminine principles. Metatron itself is or was always understood as some sort of archetype angel, which I'm not discussing because I have discussed it before and I've presented before that Metatron, the archetype itself, is really a mechanism or a thing that really does not have life form to it, but it is a mechanism of creation, a creation tool or creative tool, a tool that is used as a symbol to perpetuate creative experiences. This is what the magicians used to use, and if you flatten it down, you get the Star of David as well, etc., etc. If you really want to know more about that, please go through the videos on the past where I break down all the archetypes. So I would suggest that you please go over those things. In conclusion to the entire process, I want to add to why I've explained what I've explained, but I'll explain it in this way for you as well to understand that the world. I chose to bring this information in because it is substantial information that will be presented in many forms. However, I want to bring this to your attention and say that the world that you are existing in is expanding into another realm dynamic. And I'll explain that. No, this is not woo-woo shit. This is pure metaphysical scientific observation. In other words, remote viewing the energies as it is. That is what I am able to do. So what I have seen is that the world that we are living in is expanding into many other smaller parts or fractals of its former self. While this is taking place, there is also an energy field or the system overlaying the realm, the earth, the plane, the reality, like I've spoken before. And what this is doing is as it's progressively edging towards consuming, which is also obviously where consumerism comes from, but as it's edging like a type of jellyfish element over the world. This is figuratively, metaphysically speaking, please. Understand it so. The energy of that which is existing as natural and organic is rapidly speeding up. And if there are those that have not stepped up in that process, they are left behind. And those who are stepping up or have been stepping up and have been doing a lot of inner work are able to speed up the expansion process internally, which is as within, so without, outward. So as much as the element or the system itself is trying to devour or absorb the world, the other aspect of it or the other part of it, or that part which is still present, is expanding faster outward. So this is basically the spiritual war that is taking place, to put it in a metaphysical terminology for those to understand. With this also goes the behavior of people that are altered perhaps, and some that are left behind, so much so that that which is left behind becomes completely docile and dormant in its internal creative processes. I'm speaking about soul, people with soul. And when I say people with soul, I'm referring to the living souls, those who are alive but who are operating as if they are almost like NPC type. And I don't like to use that word because it's a word that was made up to perpetuate the matrix belief, which is also based on Gnosticism. And that would mean that I would perpetuate or then present religion itself, which I'm absolutely not propagating. This channel is not about religions. This channel is about understanding the science of your spirit, as well as how you interact with everything around you. And we do address the things in metaphysical perspective. I will leave a quote with you, which is written by J. Dyer, and on understanding metaphysics. The definition of metaphysics, despite what booksellers may offer in the way of do-it-yourself witchcraft manuals and stories of UFOs, is much different than any popular misconception of its meaning. For Aristotle, 4th century BCE, Greek philosopher, the starting point of wisdom or philosophy was metaphysics, which is what this channel is all about. Modernity, in its quest for self-destruction, has more or less rejected metaphysics. This is most likely why people don't understand it. But metaphysics will never go away, because metaphysics is reality itself, the reality of the spirit in reflection to the reality around oneself, the study of the totality of what is. Metaphysics is the starting point in terms of actual foundations of knowledge and presuppositions. End quote. It is also the highest science. This is from J. Dyer. And I will leave this with you to understand, so that for those who are trying to understand who I am and what this channel is all about, this is what this channel is all about. It is the highest science understanding of yourself, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with the eternal creator within a realm that is constantly in flux. Thank you.